So what we're doing is, really the root of the problem of sex education as well as abandoned babies is that we're actually listening to very small voices in government, and the government is responding to sex education and other things as political issues. And that's what's so tragic, because 5 years of not implementing that curriculum, and we've got the data on abandoned babies, we've got the data on illegitimate births. There's so many lives who are being tragically affected. It's so sad. And and why? Because government doesn't want to lose votes in elections. It boils down to that, and that's really heartbreaking. We were really shocked because RRAAM comprises of a number of NGOs, women NGOs, like RRAAM, Sisters in Islam, FRAM, and we just couldn't believe that the government came out so heavy. But I guess they were desperate, because the figures, look at the size of the problem. We have, this year we've had the statistics reveal that there are 2,500 illegitimate births each month, average, in the last 8 years. We've got that data from the National Registration Department that's been published in the media. So it comes out to 2,500 illegitimate births a month. Then we have 100 abandoned babies a year found in Malaysia. Think of how many are not found. And when you compare that data to other countries, I think there's like 4 reports of abandoned babies in Singapore, 10 in Australia. Australia has 21 million population. Malaysia, we have about 28 million or so. So 10 in Australia. So we have a big problem on our hands, and I think the cabinet was like devastated. And so what RRAAM's recommending, one of our recommendations, is that we really have a very in-depth national action plan to address the issue, with NGOs there, with Ministry of Health there, where we look at both the preventive aspects excuse me, and also the immediate solutions, because we tend with social issues, the government tends, and maybe NGOs who are in partnership with government too, we tend to not really go into the depths of the issue. And that's why, look at our drug problem. How many 30 years down the line where there hasn't been much impact. HIV, there's been a bit of impact in reducing incidence, but it could have been better.
I think that for someone to abandon their baby, she must be in quite a desperate position. I don't think that she would be thinking about, I will be investigated for murder.
No,
it's not much of a deterrent.
Yes. It's really heartbreaking when you hear women's stories of getting pregnant unintendedly and then concealing their pregnancy. There's many stories. I know a woman personally, a sort of a friend of a friend, but I know her personally, and she did that. She was on the big size, and nobody knew that she was pregnant until the day she gave birth on the bed with her housemate. And they woke up in the morning, the bed was wet, and she's an extrovert person. I know her, she's extroverted, and yet the stigma and shame of telling anyone and reaching out. And lucky for her, her flatmates were immediately sympathetic, and they contacted a relative of hers who happened to be, in the medical profession, and came and helped. And luckily for her also, that baby remained in the family, not with her, but one of her family members adopted it. So she had a compassionate family. So at least her heart is at rest looking at her child and knowing that they're okay. But if you don't have that, in desperation, after 9 months of concealing it, you in a way you're a little bit crazy with heartache. And you do all sorts of things when you are crazy with heartache.
Coming up with this sort of harsh punishment, do you think it'll just make it worse?
Exactly. That's what RRAAM thinks. It will make it worse. And RRAAM, we've said, let's deal with the problem more openly. Let's talk about the fact that more young people are getting married later. Men are getting married now, average age 27. Women 25, that's our statistics. So the chance of them being sexually active is they've got a lot more years before they get married, so that's the reality.
Why the reluctance to face the reality though?
It's not pleasant.
It's not pleasant to think of young people.
It's not pleasant for some people to think that their daughter or their niece or whoever are enjoying their sexual experiences. And that they may get pregnant, that's also a worry, but most people don't want to think about that because they may, they think that it's not right. So this is where it gets like, if you can refrain from framing these kind of, activities, I mean, this reality, not in your frame, this is what people themselves choose. If young people choose to get engaged in sexual relationships, and you're a parent or you're an auntie or an uncle, then what's your responsibility? Is it to moralize and tell them that they shouldn't do this, or is it a responsibility to express your concern, like I hope that you're using contraception? If they're a guy, because it's easier, I hope you are using the condom all the time, every time, because we know that young people are not using contraception very much, and of course that's why they're getting pregnant. So this is about being responsible, and you can say more, but basically over 18 they have a right to decide what is best for them, but you want to help them to protect themselves so that they have a good life. And so it may be unpleasant, but you have to be courageous as a parent or an auntie or whatever. Some have overcome that. I have spoken to some people who, professional doctors, and also NGO people who say, actually, personally, my view is that young people should wait until they're married before they have sex. But I understand that some young people do not believe that. They do not feel that, and it does not trouble them. And they have actually told this particular doctor, I like sex, I like to be intimate with my partner, and I'm going to continue doing it. So even though this doctor said she felt that was not, in her view, that was not good, to be moralistic, she did not impose that view on the young person. And so she said, well, her responsibility professionally was to actually provide them with contraception, which she did, because she didn't want them to get into any harm. So it's the principle of like not wanting more harm to come in. So some can handle it. Some can handle it.
Most can't.
They need to. Professionals need, like doctors, they need to have in their curriculum how to separate your own moral views from professional ethical behavior. We found out, we were actually so shocked, we found out when we did a report last year that the sex education curriculum, I mean, they don't call it sex education, it's like reproductive health and social education, but it includes sexuality, that it actually had been developed again, like redesigned. It's been redesigned, I don't know how many times in the past 30 years, but it was redesigned. The NGOs, women NGOs were invited to contribute, really good NGOs, and they said it was pretty good. It went to the cabinet in 2006, cabinet approved it, and with a 20 million budget, and it wasn't implemented. We found out this, and we were so shocked because
What happened?
Well, yeah, what happened was that when the education ministry began to take the first steps, or perhaps even before the first steps, small minority groups in the government who were consulted for whatever reason, perhaps it's procedure, didn't like the curriculum. So what we're doing is, really the root of the problem of sex education as well as abandoned babies is that we're actually listening to very small voices in government, and the government is responding to sex education and other things as political issues. And that's what's so tragic, because 5 years of not implementing that curriculum, and we've got the data on abandoned babies, we've got the data on illegitimate births. There's so many lives who are being tragically affected. It's so sad. And and why? Because government doesn't want to lose votes in elections. It boils down to that, and that's really heartbreaking.